way of functioning. So across the top, you see undifferentiated. The middle is differentiated, and the right is also undifferentiated. You with me? So the left and the right are the extremes of how we are working not to be. The middle ground is what we're interested in becoming more of, living out more of. So think about the top line is the word reactive. What if instead of being reactive, you were intentional and respectful? Can you get a sense of how you'd be better off? Can you get a sense of how much more of an effective leader you would be if that was your operating system, so to speak? So I'm going to ask you as we go through these to set a commitment and a dedication to yourself to be this middle ground. So this is not just a yeah. It's like, wowza. To get intentional, to get respectful to myself and others. Like, this woman is nuts. And it's true. And I'm just nutty enough to know that's what you're here for. It's what I'm here for. So as we go through these, it's like, how will you do this middle ground business? How will you do this? So to shift from automatic responses to chosen responses. That you actually choose how you respond instead of being driven by the instinctual fight, flight, or freeze forces we talked about. How could you bring a sense of playfulness to things? Think about somebody you like a lot. Like you see them coming and you just feel better. Like, oh, I'm glad they're here. They're playful. Those people have a sense of playfulness about them. They're less uptight and serious. How could you be more of that? Again, Abraham Lincoln's coming to mind. I must be channeling him today. And there's a study in part of this Healthy Congregations about him being confronted by an opponent when he was running for president. And the man called him two-faced. This is a two-faced man, like publicly. And his response was, very calmly, "Now, Mr. Cartwright, do you think if I had another face, I'd be wearing this one?" So, can you get a sense of what that would do for like a debate scene? Like, what's attractive for you? What would attract you to a leader? Someone criticizing and name-calling, or someone with enough presence and functioning to bring a little play to it? There's another episode in that same kind of debate scene where Mr. Cartwright says something like, "Who here doesn't want to go to hell? If you don't want to go to hell, stand up." Then he rephrased the question like to get everybody to stand. And everybody stood, besides Abraham Lincoln. And he said, "So, where do you think you're going?" He said, "I didn't come here to make a public display of you. So, I won't engage in that with you. And to answer your question, I'm going to Congress." You see the difference? If you're emotionally driven, and what would be the difference if you were emotionally expressive in a way that had a integrity to it? so that you could actually express an honest feeling that you have without a big emotional spew of some sort, which could just be something as simple as, I'm afraid to say this, or I feel really anxious about saying this, and I have to say it. Look at if you weren't dependent on others, if you weren't dependent on the jobs you're in, if you weren't dependent on your partners. What's it like to be dependent? To feel like you are? Say it again. Yes, you give up an identity. What's it like to feel like you're dependent on something or somebody? Trapped, vulnerable, frustrating, tight, constrained, constricted. It's very frightening, scary. Yeah. So what if you didn't believe that? That you're not, if you didn't believe you're not dependent on somebody or something, that you could actually respond to them without a dependency on them. Can you get a sense of this? So this trip through this is really experiential. It's not a theory. It's not like a checklist. This is for you to experience this as we go through. Instead of being aggressive or defensive or keeping distance, what if we could be self-directed? What makes sense to me here? What does my inner wisdom guide me to do here? That you could actually have a trusting exchange with somebody, even while they're being defensive. So, I hear people say, Martha, I just can't trust them. It's like, what you're talking about is not trust at all. Trust people to do what they do. That's trust. It's not trust or wisdom to trust them to do what you think they ought to do. That's insanity. It's not trust to trust them to do even what they say they will do. Because the mind changes how quick. So trust is really a higher level of trust. Like, I trust things to be the way they are, not the way I thought. I trust what is, not what could be, should have been, what ifs. That's real trust. To shift from being unaware of your own need for yourself. Like, everything that you're looking for in other people can only be found here. Can only be found there. So what if you shifted looking out there for it and looked here inside where it can actually be found? What would that be like? Answer it out loud. If you looked where it can be found, if you shifted your awareness that what you think you need can be met here in your inner world, what would that do for your life? Empowerment. What else? Freedom. Confidence. Peaceful. Grateful. Yes. Graceful. Grace-filled and graceful. Energized. More vital. Can you get a sense of this? It's no little thing. What if you shifted from having stiff, rigid boundaries to a little flexible boundary? That you actually loosen up your boundaries a bit. See if it'll kill you. Because, yes, more at peace with ourselves. That's what I'm after. Then to the degree that I have it with myself, I can actually show it to the world. instead of talk about it to the world. What if this is a good one for us. If you're the oldest child in your family, raise your hand. If you're born first in your family. So just take a look around. It's usually a majority. So, and me. So this gives us permission to boss you around. We can't help it. It's the cross we have to bear. No, apparently it's the cross you have to bear. Living with us types. And our tendency to overfunction. To do for people, to do and do and do and do and overdo when they could do it perfectly well for themselves. So it's not called leading when you're doing for others what they can do for themselves. That's called enmeshment, codependency, any word like that you want to put on it. Versus saying, I've got to continue to wake up to how I overfunction, particularly in the role of a leader, which will be, I do everything from unlock the door, to mow the grass, to sweep the floors, to clean the toilets, to prepare the sermon, to do the newsletter, to answer the phone, to do because that's one sure way to get it done. Versus just staying in the chaos of what it's like when other people involve themselves in doing that. So what if you took a close look if you are functioning responsibly? Responsibly. Now, this is something I'm committed to look at on a daily basis because I'm so far gone. So each day I look to see, not did I do this? Yes. Where did I do it? How did it look? What can I learn from it? And then readjust and begin again. To shift from minimal support or feedback and depending on support and feedback and depending on encouragement from others to self-respect and self-encouragement and self-pats on the back, like to take an honest look at ourselves in the mirror. Can you get a sense of what your life would be like if you kind of swept under your own feet and then cheerleaded you? Then you wouldn't be looking to the world to do it. And it's like, we can't do it for you. Any that you get from us is a bonus because we're busy. Not to mention crazy. So we're blinded by our own beliefs. So we can't notice what it is you're needing. And you can chase around after us to try to do the impossible to get your needs filled through us, or just go directly to you who can do that for you. Look at the difference between a difference gained over others, differences are unacceptable, versus define ourself from our own conviction. Define ourself from our own mission. And then define ourselves to others from that place. Not to manipulate them, control them, seduce them. And what if you shifted from having vague, narrow, nebulous goals to a clearly defined set of goals, maybe 2 or 3, that you could actually live out of? It's like, how long is your goal list? How many of them really mean something to you? Because you can narrow it out pretty quickly. Let's take a little visit here through Jesus. So if you relate to Jesus as a leader, raise your hand. If you just relate to Jesus, not as somebody to worship, but as a leader. So this is the context of how this is presented, not a worship thing, but as a context of a leader, effective leadership. Think he was clear about his mission and purpose? Think he was committed to seeing it through? Took time needed to discern what was his to do, what God is calling me to do, not what he says do, she says do, they think do, the crowd is chanting just like the birds on the wire. You know the little chant? What do I know to do here? Discernment. He not only clearly defined a mission, he took action, would you say? Did it make sense? Was it rational? The dots don't connect on crucifixion, guys. So this is a leader willing to stay the course regardless. Persisted despite the resistance that came from everywhere, even his closest followers. He trusted God. This is my favorite part of this whole curriculum for me right there. And this is my mission. To trust in God's Spirit to transform others who are challenged by my mission. So I don't have to entangle myself in how other people are going to feel about what I know is mine to do. So I go and do what I know is mine to do, and God and you are between God and you. So you and the Spirit of God will work that out in you. You see what I mean? So Jesus didn't entangle himself in how the people... Now don't get ahead of us. We're trying to pry our... Money. No money. Not enough money. Children. Yes. Specifically. Body and body image. Health. What was it over here? Confrontation. Conflict. Yes. Rejection. The fear of it. Failure. Good ones. They won't like you. Yes. Then what? They'll talk about me.
Leaving somebody else alone.
That's an open mind. Now don't get ahead of us. We're trying to pry our minds open. You with me? What is your anxiety triggers? Now these are the most common here. Money, top of the list. So now these are not the churches. Here it says the 10 most common triggers of anxiety in congregations. Cross off congregations and put me. Because money's the top of your list too. What happens in you if I told you while you've been over here, I got together with the technical team and we went directly into your bank account and emptied it to see how well you could practice these principles. So maybe it's your 401k. So what you think is yours and that you're attached to that money, if after today you understood it's not yours, what happens in you? Describe it. Yikes. Yikes. Twisted guts, tight throat, heavy backs. What happens in you when you think you don't have enough money? Panic. That you've lost the money you had. What happens? You got it. Bag woman under the street, cardboard box. Now that's the power of the mind. So never mind, for your entire life, 100% of your entire life, you've always had enough. Period. That's reality. Reality. And this is still holding a belief that I don't have enough or won't have enough. And we are reacting to that thought as though it is reality. Then you wonder why you're anxious? Because you're under the belief system. Then how does that play out in the congregation? Just answer it. You're all leaders, board members, LUTs, credentialed in some way. How does it play out in your congregations, people's anxiety about money? How does it show up in the congregation? Yes, wadded up dollar bills. What else? Yes, holding on to it. Yes, the immediate reaction to whatever's brought to the table is, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. There's not enough money. What else?
Or the complaint, you talk about money too much.
Yes, you talk about money too much. That means you're asking me for mine. Yes. Then guilt and shame are used as techniques for how to get money. Can you see where you got that as a kid? You know, when you're just a little innocent kid and you wanted, can I have money? Can I have money? How did they teach you not to do that? Shaming and guilting you, making it wrong. Money don't grow on trees. You don't deserve it. There's not enough of it. What else?
Don't talk about it because people will stick that.
You got it. Don't even talk about it. So it's truly taboo. Truly taboo. Too risky to mention. So it's like the talks on money, it's not about money. The anxiety is about a belief system. So if you want money flowing more freely, work at the level of the belief system. And until that belief system loosens up in us, the money is not going to loosen up in us. The type of worship. Have you all tried changing around your worship a little bit? Yeah, what'd that get you? I say to ministers, if you want to be out in less than a year, go ahead and change the order of service your first year. If you want a 1-year anniversary, you may not want to do that. Depends on your system. There's no formula for it. But it's like, depending on how adaptable and flexible the system is as far as able to navigate change, it's like that's enough change to just push them right over the edge. The type of worship.
And we talk about in unity being open and flexible.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you're not saying the peace song.
Yes, you got it. Or the Lord's Prayer. So those are the two big ones. Yeah. Yes. So unity says they're open and flexible. What's your clue? What's your clue that unity, first of all, unity's just a concept. Period. So there's no unity. We point at unity like it is something. It's not. Unity is a energy. It's a movement. It's not a thing. What's your clue that those of us in unity are not so open and flexible as we claim to be? Just say what comes to your mind. Yes, most of the churches are not thriving. Sameness. Keep going. There's actually a decline. As reported, I do not know this to be a fact. This all comes from something circulating about this. So this is gossip and rumor that there is some kind of, the churches went from like 1,000 to 600 or 700. And then you can look around in your region at the decline locally in the number of churches, and then the decline within the churches. So what was used to be 100, maybe 75, or 75, maybe 50. So it's not just a simultaneous, it's not just a one way of decline, it's like a broader of that. So this is what kind of some old ways of doing it. Remember our list from last night and this morning about being rigid and keeping stuck and systems stuck? That this is some of the consequences of that.
We even have the division, do we call ourselves a church or not call ourselves a church? This person wants us to call it a church because then we'll know, but then other people, they don't like the word church.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah. Well, really.
And are we
Yeah.
Christian or not?
Yes, Christian or not. So these are good conversations to have. And it's just like, what does it get you to keep it? What do you think it would cost you to loosen up on that a bit? So when you look at the mega churches, so to speak, which are the Saddlebacks, Vineyards, Sojourn, Crossroads, those kind of mega churches with 8,000 a service, 20,000 on a Sunday, those kind of churches, like they don't call themselves church. They're communities. They don't have symbolism, typically crosses, stained glass. So it's like all the emotional baggage of that has been checked somewhere. And the primary part of their growth came from unchurched, people that had given up on that. So they found a way to meet that we haven't done. Not because we're bad, it's because we haven't done anything different much than the way we've always done it. And it's not a problem unless you call it a problem. Just, are you really called? Is there something in you compelling and calling you to do something a little differently? And what would be the impact of doing just one or two things a little differently for us in the way of surviving versus thriving? Issues around sex and sexuality, conversations about this. And it's like I've heard people say, my God, they are so prejudiced and bigoted. Guess who that is? That's your prejudice on them prejudice. They're so judgmental. Guess who that is? That's me judging the judgmental. Me criticizing the critical. So if you want it to change out there, guess where? This is the lens, the projector lens right here. So if you want the projection different, yes, this is where the lens is on the screen. And we're busy up here in the projection trying to rearrange all of it like it's actually possible. Old versus new. Does that sound, you saw that in the video? The old way of doing it, or what the older ones want. Growth. How many times have you heard we got to grow the church, 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 want a minister that'll grow the church, grow the church? What would you get if you grew the church? Answer without censoring, whatever comes to mind. More names, more people, more money. Change. Yes, more of the same. More attitude, more expenses. So you're going to get what you think you're going to get is not what you're going to get. Just getting more people in the seats doesn't mean you'll get more money. Now, until you have actually experienced this, you'll never believe me. But when you actually have more people and have the same amount of money, then it becomes a reality to you. You think you'll have more volunteers if you get more money. It's like, it's not so. I served a church that had 350 members and about 6% of them doing 80% of the work. Ideally, it would be 20%. So 20% of 300 is how many? 60. 6% of 300 is how many? 12. 15. 12. 6% of 300. 18. Ever how many it is. You see the difference? Big difference. So, and we thought we were just happy as pigs in slop. You know, we're just cooking along here, got a kind of a vital church. It's like, no, we have a group that's over-functioning. So we're like serving and then wondering why people can't hang around because they're so burned out at the end of their service time they can't stay. So it's an interesting point to shift that participation rate, the serving rate, from a greater percentage than 3, 4, 5, or 6. And so some of the smaller churches that I serve have the majority of people there in service. That's much more thriving than having a little handful of people serving a large group. Staff conflicts and resignations of staff or ministers. If you've lived through minister transition, raise your hand. Keep them up. If you've lived through more than 3 minister transitions, raise your hand. Now look around. So this is like right at home here. Conflicts of whether we're internally focused or externally focused. And what that means to me is we're so busy talking about the church we might have and the church we could have and the what ifs that we're not present to the church we have. You don't connect with the people that you have, the people that are in the seats, what they're about, what they want, what they're committed to, what inspires them, because you're still waiting for the church that may come in the future. So there's an internal focus that's missing here with how can I connect to the 50 I have and really minister to them? How can we lead the 50 we have and be open to the next 50 in the door, but I'm not putting all my energy to the 50 that I don't have when I've got 50 people in the seat waiting for a minister, waiting for a leader. If there's trauma or tension and transition. So I hope the next time you go through a ministerial transition or any other transition that's a key stakeholder, it could be a patriarch, a matriarch, a long-term board member or something like that, any kind of major transition, that you take a dedicated time aside for healing and that you not run out and jump into another relationship. Just like if you had a major relationship break, you wouldn't go to a counselor that would tell you run out and get you another relationship this afternoon. Take time for healing. Take time for process. Take time to recalibrate, realign yourself with who you are and who you've come here to be. And that will mean then, we talked about that a little bit at lunch, our table over here, that you could just literally cover the bases. Who's going to open and close and sign the checks, speakers lined up, get music covered, things like that, or like to keep it business as usual the best we can, and clearly understand it is not business as usual. So you're getting through a transition that is going to take more time than you like. And you don't have to do it alone. That's what regional resources are for. And it's not the old way of doing things. Some of you shared with me over lunch that you still feel uneasy and even somewhat traumatized by the way people have been sent in on you in the name of peacemaking, in the name of mediation and things like that. And you didn't get the outcome that you were seeking. So this new way of doing things is a different model for that. That what we're looking to bring to you as a minister and as a ministry is support. So anybody that comes in to tell you how to do it, don't book them back. So somebody would come in to sit with you, to dialogue with you, to explore with you, to facilitate healing with you. Then you can count on them as support. And then ultimately the worst is typically like harm done to a child or the death of a child. And thank you, God, we don't have much of that. The next quote is from Ed Friedman, his book Generation to Generation, which if you're at all interested in the next level of healthy congregations, becoming a healthy congregations facilitator or trainer, particularly if you're going to stay in leadership in a congregation and want to understand the impact of systems and how systems function and get some skill at looking at your function and system, it's a must read, Generation to Generation. Secrets generally function to keep anxiety at higher energy levels. So think about the secret that you've kept personally all these years. You know, the secret that you couldn't tell. Think about the energy that's leaked out of you. Think of how that's always there. Just like a chronic level of anxiety just running your show. The secret that you harbor. That's the reason not to keep them in your system. It's like a little, what is it you call it in the war when you step on it and it blows up? A mine, like a landmine. It's like a landmine. Yeah. When secrets are revealed, despite the fact that people in the system might at first be upset, either over the information or the fact that the secret's out, the anxiety level of the system will decrease. Can you hear that? So Ed Friedman puts it with, the upset may hurt you, keeping the secret will kill you. One hurts, one kills. This is particularly the case if the system continues to work at the issues after they've surfaced, then issues that have participated, and working also with issues that often had precipitated the forming of the secret in the first place. So you'd want to get to the cause of why you think you need to keep secrets. And it would be something like, they can't handle it, or I want to spare them from the pain of it. It's like, you won't spare anybody anything. It's just not possible. So think about, before you start this, think about, you know what I mean? If I'm going to come to your church, you got to do this. And if I'm going to come over there, you got to do that. You with me? So I've got them on video. So just enjoy them. And also, look at how it's you. Not, is this me? Yes. Where am I that? And what can we learn from this? It's called the Church of Me.
Imagine a church where every member is passionately, wholeheartedly, and recklessly calling the shots.
I have a busy work week, and by the time Sunday rolls around, I'm tired. So how about a church service that starts when I get there?
Can do. When you arrive, we begin.
This guy, he plays by his own rules. We want to find a church where if he starts screaming, we're not the bad guys, right? Come here.
Say no more. If your baby's screaming, you stay seated. The others around you can leave.
You know, financially, Sherry and I don't give a lot to the church, but we'd sure like to know who does.
All right, if you join now, you'll know what every person gives in detail.
When I'm in the church service, can my car get a buff and a wax?
Not just that, but an oil change and a tune-up.
Hey, how about tickets to the Super Bowl?
That's asking too much.
I'm serious. If I'm going to join, I want tickets to the big game.
All right, you join now and we'll get you there.
I like a pony.
Look in your backyard. Me Church, where it's all about you.
So can you relate a bit? A little close to home for some of us, huh? So this is a question. Find something blank to write on your table. Either flip the worksheet over or find something blank. And here's the first question. So let me preface this by saying this is not a spiritual exercise. Please do not pretend to be wise or enlightened. Be petty and like juvenile instead. Okay? Just for some fun. This is your chance to have me church. Okay? What the church should do for me is, the church should do for me is, and make a list. Wash my feet. Do my clothes. Provide transportation.
Sing my favorite song.
Sing my favorite songs. Keep going.
Sit near the front. That's spoken as a minister.
Yes. Yes, sit near the front.
Recliners.
Get some recliners. Good one.
Designated parking.
Yeah, designated parking. Okay. Say it again.
Keep everybody out who's wearing a
Yes. Keep people out. Ban people that wear fragrance.
cappuccino maker.
Get a cappuccino maker. Okay. Now here's the exercise. The very same list you've got there in front of you stays the same. What changes is what I should do for the church is. Now read your list. Get a cappuccino maker. Get some bongo drums. What was yours? Get some available men to come to church. That's your job. How many do you want, honey?
I used to have a one-man tent and dream of going in.
Uh-huh. Yes. So the turnaround is, that's not up to me. So what if you did the opposite of this? So can you see kind of where this is? If you think the church should do it, guess whose job it is? I think the church should do this. That's my job. That's my philosophy. That's my to-do list. That's the turnaround of this. Now, what's the opposite? What the church doesn't need is to ban people wearing fragrance, to have more available men, to have a cappuccino maker. How do you know the church doesn't need it? It doesn't have it. That's reality-based. Now, how do you react when you think the church should and it isn't? Say it again. Yes, a feeling of lack, a discontent. How do you react when you think the church should, and here comes the list, and the church doesn't? How do you react? Yes. So you may over effort. Yeah. So if you take it on out of a sense of, awareness, this is mine to do, versus I must do, see the difference of that. So what is it right now you know to do for your church? It's been here, right here for a long time. Actually invite people. Oh, novel idea. When's the last time you invited somebody to your church service? How often do you invite somebody to participate in your church service? This is just self-assessment. Don't make it wrong. Remember the part about no guilt, no shame? No guilt, no shame, no blame here. Just what stops you from inviting people to participate in your church? Other than being stuck in an old way of doing it. What else is something you can do? What'd you write down? Read your list.
I said lead a worship community, but more than that, make a pitch for organizing a worship community, or it looks at Sunday service.
Yes.
What we could do differently, or better, or what we're doing well.
Yes.
Just because right now we're not paying much attention to it.
Yes. So actually lead a committee that can talk worship service instead of the parts of a worship service. Keep going. What else? What'd you write down? Just read right off your list.
Drumming circle.
A drumming circle. Good. Sneak those bongos in. Keep going.
Prosperity class.
A prosperity class. Yes. Keep going.
Other class.
Yes. To lead some class. Do you have one in mind, honey? You're not speaking? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like this is guiding you. It's like we're just disregarding it. Because this is running the show. Instead of this running the show. This not just the heart, but wisdom. The part of you that's being compelled out into the next grandest version of yourself. And this is giving you all the reasons for why not. And you're going with this instead of this. So just so you understand, the exercise is not a commitment for you to do this. This is more like just a priming of the pump. What'd you write on your list? Say them out loud. Particularly if you're afraid to, just speak it out loud. See if it kills you.
Chips, dip, and cold microbrews.
Yes. Thank you. Chips and dip and cold beer. Think about it. Yes. And call it communion. Yes, call it communion. You think you'd get a few people in the door? Yes, a few new people in the door. What else? Be radical. This is nothing serious going on here. What other ideas?
Something that's like really different than all these things. And it was to step aside so there's room for others to be more.
Yes, it could be step aside. So is that out of a calling to step aside, or is that in reaction to something?
Probably.
Yeah. So the part that's reactive is not integral. So go with what's left of the other one then. Yeah. What else? What would just be mind-blowing? Like if I said there's a $1,000 prize for the most radical idea, what would you say? Yes, honey. Specifically. Yeah. Do you have a sense of it? Yeah. Yeah. And how would the church benefit if all of you got in touch with your real authentic self? Not the mask self, not the this self, but your true authentic self. How would your church benefit from that?
Be attractive.
Yes. Yes. Attractive, like Pied Piper. Like, how do you do this? What do you do? Where do you go? Unity. Yes, honey. Yes, here. There's your outreach, by the way. Your in-reach is your outreach. In first, out second. Okay, you got a sense of it? So what will you do differently? Now, the handout you're holding, for those of you watching or listening, it's entitled Presence and Functioning. And it's a list of 26 items. Now, I have been a student since I was born. I'm still a student. So imagine this room that we're standing in full of curriculum. You with me? Paperwork, curriculum, study, courses, 3 degrees, workshops, trainings. I've repeated trainings. I've been in peacemaking training for 12 years, every 2 years for 12 years. Mediation skills training 4 times. Healthy congregations training twice, and then facilitators training. So training. And then I found what I could land on here. This, out of all that, is my favorite handout of all time. And you're holding it. And it's called Presence and Functioning. Now this is the summary of what we're here about tonight, last night, and today. This is also my prescription. So this is on the mirror, between the seats, in the black bag, and by the chair. So I can remind me of who I've come here to be. And here it is. So let's read them and see how you can kind of track this. To become a well-differentiated, mature person, one has to think from the I position. We've got that from the work so far. To focus on my own functioning while staying connected with others. That indeed is good stewardship of the self. Stewardship is managing what has been given you to manage. Stewardship is not comparing you to somebody else. You were born to be an original. Don't die trying to be a copy. You've been given your own appointment. Look around at this room. Do you see anybody that looks remotely the same? Not a one. And all of humanity, we're made to look the way we look. You had to have that hair, those eyes, those eyebrows, those eyelashes, those wrinkles, those freckles, those mustaches, those whatever you have. That was your appointment. Who would you be if you stopped comparing you to somebody else? Answer it out loud. And what would me be? What would me experience? What would be your experience if you stopped comparing? Freedom. Contentment. Joy. Darn right. Easier to be around. Better relationships. A friend. Who would you be if you stopped comparing you? Get an experience of it. To just look around at all of it, everything and everybody, and not compare you. Freedom. Now that's what I'm after. Freedom. So number 1, define yourself to others, circle and stay in touch with them, particularly when they don't like you, particularly when they're disagreeing with you, particularly when they're attacking you. Remember in the video how she said she was feeling attacked with the groceries in arms, and she still stayed connected to that man? I hear you, Walter. You're very mad. You're feeling left out. 2, regulate your own anxiety. So you calm your own pulse before you start coaching somebody on how to manage their pulse. It's like on the airplane, put the oxygen mask on you first. Then once you're breathing normally, then I may want to follow you. 3, make a clear distinction between fact and feeling. Can you get a sense of what doing one of these would do for your life? Not 26 of them, just one. What doing one of these will do to transform your own life. 4, profess your own values and beliefs and circle without. The word without, circle it. Without attacking and judging others for their values and beliefs. This is another way us unity folks, me in unity, is righteous, self-righteous. Like, oh my God, they're so like Bible thumper. Oh, so maybe I would be better off if I thumped the Bible a little. How else do you do it? You know what's wrong with the Catholics, the Methodists, the Baptists, and everybody that's not unity? How do you attack them and blame them?
You tell them that when they mature, they will.
Yes. 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 So when you get enlightened, come and join us. Yes. So how enlightened is that? 5, do not demand that others should think, feel, and act like you do. Do you get a sense of this? Where you think, how many times have you heard yourself say, I would never have done that. I would not do that. I would never have done that. I can't believe they do that. I would not do it like that. Oh well. That's how you wouldn't do it. Guess how they do it? The way they do it. Can you get a sense of how much easier your life would be if you didn't impose your thinking, feeling, and way on somebody else? This is not for their sake, folks. This is for your own freedom, your own peace, for you to stop this. 6, accept differences between others and yourself, knowing that differences alone will not cause differing. So can you welcome differences? You may as well. They're going to be. They're in the field. That's the way we operate here. Like, what planet are you from if you think we're not going to have differences? even in unity. Big differences. 7, take responsibility for your own anger, your own frustrations, your own distresses, and not accuse others as the cause of your discomfort. So this is how it looks. I'm mad at her because. I'm frustrated at him because. What if you stopped right there? No because anymore. I will not hold somebody else responsible for my experience. Now, how will your relationships be better off? If you quit holding them responsible for your feelings.
We take responsibility if we don't feel.
You got it. And then how would that benefit your relationships?
The person would feel a lot freer.
Yes. And maybe a little more attracted to us. Instead of guilted and shamed into us. And it's like this whole love business, which is, I'm convinced this is why I'm not asked to do ceremonies anymore. Because I have my own set of vows for them. So if you want me to marry you, I'm delighted to. Here's your vows. So instead of, I vow to love you through thickness and thin and until death do us part and, it's like, nope. I vow to love you when I do. And when I don't, I don't. I vow to push every button you've got. I vow to hold you responsible for my feelings on a daily basis. I vow to make you think I'm your mother, your father, and every family member that you could not bear. You may as well. That's what... or realistic. Yes. Well, it depends on what you're after. Depends on what you want in a relationship. And if you want the myth and the fairy tale, then that's what you'll go for. And if you want solid ground, that's what you'll go for. So that I won't love you always. I'll love you when I get what I want. Then when I don't get what I want, there's hell to pay. And then I'll start manipulating you, controlling you, guilting you, shaming you, criticizing you, blaming you. Then where's the love there? Now that's how it goes, folks. We just don't have to call it love or not love. That's us in a human experience. So then it's like, you want to get married, honey? I'll love you when I do, and I don't when I won't. I won't when I don't. Okay. Or I'm going to promise to love you and lie to you about that. And then we say, oh, love is, and then fill in the blank. Then they come home and say, you know, I'm going to leave you because I want to be with this other woman. What do you mean? How dare you? I don't want you to want what you want. I want you to want what I want for you. I love you. I want you to stay with me. I love you. No, I want to go over there. I love that. No. Stay with me. So, which is love? Which is love? You get to decide. And whatever you believe will be your experience. And what's it like when people are trying to get you to want something that you don't want? And you cannot want something you don't. You can lie about it, pretend about it, fake it, so to speak, but you cannot want something that you don't. So until you square that away here, you can expect it in your experience. That's how it will show up for you, to continue looking at it in you. 8, live by your own goals. This was one of my favorite ones because I have a tendency to get caught up in what other people want for me. Like Susan Ingpool, who is a dear, dear and cherished friend of mine, the senior minister at Unity of Louisville, was dead set, and still is, as far as I know, for me to take a path of ordination through Unity. And that was not for me. I looked at it, I considered it, and it was not a fit for me. Square peg, round hole. And I almost did it because of her expectation of me to do that and me wanting to fulfill that expectation. So I nearly left myself to do that. That's one example. And I feel like I'm greater service to Unity with the path I'm in than I would have been to take that path. 9, refuse to coerce, will, and threaten others into taking responsibility for your pain. This means effective today, you cannot blame anybody else for your pain. It's frightening. Like, what will you talk about? Who will you talk about? No one responsible for your pain or your feelings. 11, form open one-to-one relationships with people, avoiding what is collusive and secretive. So what do you think the word collusive means? With people collude with you, what do you think it means? Yes. So they like join your cause. So they come to you, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, and you join them in that. Yes. So now get a sense of who you would be if you stopped colluding with people in their stories. Because you've taught people to come to you for collusion. You've taught them to come to you for support of keeping their patterns in place. What if you stopped doing that?
They stop coming to you. For that. It shifts the energy in the organization.
Yes.
They aren't going to have
Yes.
that person to listen to them and support them in that position.
Yes. We're not going to teach them that we're going to keep up with that we're going to keep on with that. Like in Jeannie, remember, go back to the video, they stopped colluding with her and said, go directly to the minister. They said, please do not go to the former pastor. She still did, but they didn't collude with her like, oh yeah, let's do that. So we wouldn't collude with somebody like, you're a victim, like, yeah, you're right. So it's like, is it really true that you're a victim here? A real questioning. Can you get a sense of how this may challenge some? Yeah. So tomorrow afternoon, that's the nuts and the bolts of that. The whole day questioning, just like we have here. If you remember the questioning from the video, every one of those leaders, as effective leaders, use questions for effective leading. Questioning. 12, change your thoughts of victimizations to thoughts of what you can do. So start to catch yourself, starting now, with quit talking about what I can't do, what we don't have, what we haven't accomplished, and talk about what can we do. Literally, what can we do here? What can I do here? So that's a shift of focus. And then give yourself a little time and space and another perspective so you can get a clearer picture of things. I have people that have hired me that said, I'm going to hire you to coach me because I want your perspectives. You see more than I see. So get someone in your life that is neutral party, that won't collude with you, as a coach for you, a mentor for you, somebody that can hold a broader perspective of seeing for you than you can have. Not because you're wrong, just because you can't see what you're not seeing. You can't see what you don't see. You know the story about the elephant? You blindfold people and have them to touch an elephant, and they all bring a different story about what they're touching. Now, who's right? They're all right. It's just a very limited perspective. So give yourself some time and space out of the emotional hooks and field to get a broader perspective for yourself. 14, please circle this one. This is a magic pill. Contain your own reactivity to the reactivity of others. So the more heightened they get, the more still you get. The louder they get, the harder, the aggressive, the softer you become. Not to become a doormat for your own stillness, because the power lies in your capacity not to react. All the power lies within your capacity to not react. 15, take a stand and circle and maintain a less anxious presence. So define yourself, where do you stand, and remain less anxious when people are disagreeing. 16, do not confuse closeness with sameness, like in unity. Like we're all the same. It's like false. Or a differentiation as isolation. So people that I've coached will say, Martha, I'm doing really well on this self-differentiation. I'm like, wow, really? Well, tell me about it. Well, I stopped speaking to my family. Well, you may want to go back and reread that worksheet. That's not what differentiation is, that I cut off from them and quit speaking to them. It's the opposite of that. That I can stay in touch with them, disagreeing with me, attacking me, and still manage my anxiety. That's what differentiation is. Avoid 17, avoid thinking either or good or bad. Now that sounds simple, don't it? Doesn't it sound simple? It does sound simple. Catch you in black and white, either or thinking. Did you see it? Remember it in the video? The minister said, when she said, what's going to happen? He said, only two things can happen. Either they have to go or I have to go. That's an example of it. 18, look at how you, and cross out the word may, look at how you contributed to the problem. What is your part? Where did you throw gas on the fire? Where did you provoke them? Where did you sabotage? Where are you blaming? Look at how you are contributing to this. 19, accept that anxiety and tension and conflict and pain are part of the human process. Circle that whole sentence, please. Accept that anxiety, tension, and pain are part of the human process.
They're clues.
Yes, more than clues, honey, since recorded history. 20, cultivate your own imagination rather than concentrating on conditions. So this means shift your focus off the conditions. You've heard this right. Eric Butterworth sang it and wrote it and read it, and see things right, not the condition of things. So shift your view out of the condition to what is right here. What if I was seeing this rightly? 21, hang in there. Persevere. Be uncommonly motivated to see things through. You don't remember when you were a kid when you did this? Where like you took on something to do and nothing could have stopped you? Like you wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, didn't rest. You were on it. You were out doing something that mattered to you. That's the part of us that we've separated from. To be uncommonly motivated to see something through. Be willing, 22, to learn, to be intrigued by life, and be challenged by the mystery of it. To be challenged by the puzzle of life. Do you all work puzzles? Crossword puzzles, Sudoku? What else? You challenge yourself. We're here in this body to take on the challenge, to master this. So you can start enjoying the challenge anytime. You may as well. You can dread it, and then it's a sense of drudgery, or you can just approach it as a challenge. What can I learn? How can I navigate this? 23, have a clear vision for you. 24, use a wide repertoire of responses. Remember him referring to that this morning? Instead of like your rote kind of answer, instead of checking in to see what your answer really is, we just answer the same way we've always answered. Broaden that a bit. Practice it. 25, allow for process. Patience. Particularly with you. Particularly with you.